It's February, and this is our only source of water. It won't stop leaking. Been adjusted, all it can be adjusted. All right, guys, we've got this water spigot that won't stop leaking. I've adjusted and I've adjusted. So now the time is to dig it up and replace it. Like I've said in earlier videos, it's the Ozarks. As you look around, there's rocks everywhere. So this is the fun part. Tools of choice. All right, here's the tools. And these aren't the fun tools necessarily. Rock bar, spade shovel, sharpshooter, pickaxe, flat shovel. These aren't the ones that are necessarily the fun tools, but they're the necessary homestead tools without a doubt. And I'll tell you guys, a rock bar, you get the absolute heaviest rock bar that you can get. Trust me, you'll thank me later, because otherwise it's hard work. But the heavier the rock bar, it's kind of like a T-post driver. If you buy a little cheap, flimsy one from wherever, you're going to work that much harder with it. You want a heavy tool. You're going to make that work that much easier. But today, we're going to be digging this thing up. We're going to be changing it out, because it's February, guys. This thing freezes up again, and we don't have water. Then all the animals, I'm having to fill a bucket up in the house, which, don't like traipsing through our house with our dirty boots. But I'm having to fill a bucket up in the house to go out and water the animals. And as you know, even just like the chickens, all right, bucket of water once or twice a day. When you got a couple cows, they take a lot more water. So this is a necessary deal. I've been putting it off for a while. I've had the water spigot for a while, but it's been froze around here, like froze. So now here we are. It's cold, wet, and windy, but hopefully make the ground that much softer so it's not just a complete mess to get this thing dug and changed out. All right, guys, you just got through watching that. Only took a minute or two, right? We made it. Looky here. There, you can see the bottom. Thank goodness. Now, before I shut the water off, going to try to get this cleaned off a little bit. Let's see. I don't want to get too much water in the hole, but I got to be able to see. All right. All right, guys. Made it through. I'm telling you, you'll think about this as you go on, but I kind of planned this out, hoping that the ground would be as easy as it possibly could be. Because like when we hooked up power, when I got to that point with this house, I had to trench over for power. It was July. It was dry. And this ground, as you guys know, when it's dry like that, was like trying to dig concrete. I mean, it was tough, very tough. But for this, we had a snow a week ago, been froze. Finally had a mild week as far as temperature goes, so everything was thawed. Rained all day yesterday. Yeah, you're contending with the mud and the sticky clay, but that's a lot better than dealing with concrete, aka hard ground. But we made it. That's a pretty good pile of dirt to just dig with your basic hand tools over there. Surprisingly enough, I never grabbed that rock bar, not one time, which is, I'm not upset about that. So now we've got the new spigot. I got pipe wrenches, but I got to run up to the well house, shut the water off for a minute, make sure Mrs. Pace Acre ain't in the middle of needing it for a moment. As long as that thing comes loose, we'll get this thing changed out and we'll be moving on to wrapping this up, doing the next step. I've got rock. I don't have base rock. I just have some creek rock, which is better than no rock. So I'm going to use some creek rock, but I also have some of the fabric that I bought to put the French drain around the storm cellar. So I'm going to use a little bit of that, line the hole with it, try to keep the dirt out of the rock so these things drain. Most of you guys, I'm sure, already know how these work, but it's not super complicated, but it's pretty kind of neat. You got your hydrant handle up here, a lever down here. Your valve's actually down here, so that's how they keep from freezing. So even though your water is coming out, you know, feet above the ground, when you shut them off, they drain underground. That's why it's important to put some sort of, you know, ideally clean base, whatever you guys call it, but clean base is the best thing. Something similar you'd use for not necessarily road base because that compacts, but like clean base just is the best thing to use. So we're going to use some creek rock because that's what we have. We're homesteaders, remember? I have to remind myself that sometimes. But stick around. All right, guys. So you see, we've got the hole dug. I just ran up to the well house, shut the water off. Now, as long as this thing comes apart, we'll be in business. Something else I was going to say, you know, you never know how water lines are ran. Our well house is up the hill up there. And I know where the water comes into our house. So I just assumed that it was a straight line across into our house. And this was a T. So I'm digging and I'm digging and I'm watching for the pipe running this way. Well, then when I finally found it, the pipe was coming in over here. So it tees off the main line over here. The only reason I bring that up, it's I always got to be careful digging because you can assume how it would run and be completely wrong like I was this time. We're uphill or down, the well's uphill from us, so we're downhill. So this thing, we had our water freeze up there one year and didn't know it because our water didn't quit. And we share that with our neighbor, and they called and said, "You got water?" I said, "Yeah, I've got water." Well, they're uphill from the well. So as soon as the pressure's off, it stops right then. Always need you a good feed sack when you're going to lay in the mud. Let's see if I can't work this up here. No. Hey, something happened. Look at there, guys. Man, that's exciting. That really is exciting. You never know when you do a plumbing job. You know, you hear jokes and it's the truth. When you do plumbing jobs and if you only had to go to the hardware store 3 times, that's basically like pro level at that point. May end up having to shop back my hole out. We'll see how much water comes out of that. Because I gotta tape that pipe. Okay. Try it again. Oh, suck some water up. All right. Now we can get back down in this mud hole. Always remember, guys, pay attention how you're wrapping your Teflon tape because it will only work one direction. Nice and shiny new. Now let's just pray that this thing lasts us for many, many years without leaking and freezing. There it is. I wish you could see Mrs. Pace Acre's face right now because I guess I bought the mini. Here, let's just go ahead and get a little size comparison here. Did you get it? Will it work? Yeah. Will it be a little bit close to the ground? Yeah. Hey, I'm not upset about it as long as it don't leak. It's going to be up high enough to get a garden hose and hopefully a 5-gallon bucket. Hopefully a 5-gallon bucket under it. But even if it doesn't, if it don't leak, I'm happy. Graceful. It's a little bit close to the ground. Might just have to use a little bucket, transfer it to a big bucket. All right, we're getting snug right there. Last thing I want to do is try to get greedy at this point in the project. And voila. Now I'm gonna run up, turn the water back on, make sure everything's working right. And then the next step is I'm gonna show you guys how we fill this thing in to give room for that drain. As you can see, that's where they, like I was explaining to you guys earlier, that hole, this is the actual valve down under the ground. So you wanna make sure you got rock, and I've got some of that cloth I'm gonna put around there to where, keep the dirt from infiltrating the rock. That way it's got a place to drain out underground. Because otherwise, if there's water, that's what was happening with ours. Just that little bitty drip, that means if it's dripping here, then this pipe's full. Well, then you get up here above the freeze level, and then it freezes up. Luckily, it never busted on us, surprisingly, but it would freeze up, and then you didn't have any water in the middle of the winter. So on a homestead, you got to have your water. You got a lot of animals depending on it, so stick around. All right, there I am. All right, guys, just turn the water back on. Let's see what we got. Hey, look at that. Now watch this. In case you didn't know, I'm sure most of you did, but that is how these things work. So that's why our next step is rock. I've got some of that fabric for French drains. That's exciting. You know, it's the simple things that are exciting. This thing has been leaking. I don't even want to admit how long. It's been leaking. It's been leaking for a while. I would adjust that little, you can adjust that nut on the top. Get it to stop leaking. I'd mess with it, it'd stop leaking. I'd come back and it'd be leaking again. I even drilled a little spot so that the little jam bolt had a little dimple on the shaft to set in. Come back, still be leaking. So it's after many attempts of trying to fix it, rig it up, whatever you want to say. But now we got that fixed. So next step is filling it back in, but making sure that it's got a spot for that water to drain. All right, guys, you can see down in the hole there, I got our fabric. Just gonna try to get creative here. Oh, that's good. Now, would it work without this? I'm sure it would, but digging holes is not exactly just a favorite thing to do. It's a very necessary thing to do sometimes, but all right, so we got that fabric there. Got some right here. Now, I wish I had different rock, but I don't. So that's just kind of what we got. Basically, we just got to make sure that we have a pocket for all that water out of this to come down. Like I said, this has got fines in it, but it's better than just putting straight dirt back in there. All right, now we got some rock in here. Now we're just gonna wrap this up like a, just encase it the best we can. Try to keep that as much of the soil out of there as we can. We can't forget, whoever installed this to begin with put this nice sturdy pipe in there for us. So we will tie back onto that. Thing is, one positive thing with this being, I bought the one that's too short, is that there's going to be the same amount in the ground that's sticking out of the ground. So that's not a bad thing. Well, there we have it. We've got rock around there. We got it fastened. We don't have any leaks. Let's fill this hole back in. All right, guys. You made it to the end with me. I appreciate it. I do. But we did it. We changed out our spigot. It's all I can do is laugh. That is so funny. It's a little short. Hope I don't ever let the grass grow up or something. You might have to worry about hitting it with the lawnmower. But it's fine. It works. It doesn't leak. Well, that's what they make garden hoses for, right? Well, thanks for joining us here on Pace Acre, little homestead in the middle of the Ozarks where we just go through our projects. If you watched any of my other videos, you've seen that I made a project where I was behind. I'm behind on all my projects. Well, this was one of them. So it's may not seem like a huge thing, but it's a big deal. It is a big deal, and it's worth taking a little moment and being thankful when we finish something, even if it's just changing out a water spigot, because it's easy to put these things off, guys. We all know. Very rarely do we wake up in the morning and say, you know what? I'm going to go dig a 2-foot hole by hand and change that out. That's usually not how our thoughts work, but either way, I appreciate you guys sticking around, like I said. And if you like this content, please take a moment, like, subscribe, comment. I know everybody says that, but it does make a big difference in this stuff. The comments really do keep the videos getting pushed. So I thank you for all that. Remember, feed your critters, love your neighbor, and follow Jesus. Have a great day.